It's time for ROTD Weekend. I have got to say that I am pretty proud of myself at this point. So you are listening to this on August 3rd, and I am recording it on June 22nd. So I have this to record and maybe 3 or 4 more of the daily episodes, just so that I have a bit of a buffer so that I can go away for that month that I'm taking, going to Belgium with my kids and with Marty for a month and not work, or at least not this kind of work. I'll still have some stuff to do, but no recording, no photographing, no recipe testing. I'm taking a break from kind of the harder parts of my job. And yeah, I'm just about there. So this is the last of the weekend episodes that I am pre-recording before I go. And while it has been tiring, I do feel like it's given me like a lot of concentrated time to think about why I do this. I mean, a little bit like, oh my gosh, why do I do this? But also like, you know, what is the larger point and what am I trying to say and what am I trying to do? And I really think that one of the main points of this show is, you know, to help make your decision making easier, inspire you with what you can make that day. That is what I'm always talking about, choosing the right recipe for the right day. You can be driving home from work and be thinking, what should I make for dinner tonight? And then you listen to me and you're like, oh yeah, Christine's talking about those tacos. I'll try that. Or Christine's talking about that lentil spaghetti sauce, but we had spaghetti yesterday. Ooh, but I'd love like a curry with some lentils in it. You know, so it's that kind of like kicking off point for sure. And then I think there's also that element of the tips and things. I feel like I know I've been going a little squirrely since I'm recording so many of these episodes in a row, and I've gotten a little like super obsessive and detail oriented. That corn on the cob recipe that I told you about, the air fryer red potatoes, I think the air fryer chicken thighs, some of them have been pretty detail heavy, but like as I do them, I am nerding out and thinking about all these little details that make food better. And my hope is that when I'm saying all these things, there's a couple things that you didn't know or hadn't thought about. And, you know, that's going to change how you cook or give you a little bit of like new insight into why we do things the way we do. So there's definitely that part as well. And then there's this thing about how food connects us and learning to cook connects us to people who've come before us, to people we know in our lives. And I get to connect with you. I'm talking with you and you interact with me. And also by having guests on the show and sometimes having listeners as guests on the show and just different kinds of guests. So there's that feeling of food and learning to cook as connection. And so I've been thinking about all that, and I sat down to record this episode and look to see like who the guest was that I'm going to be introducing and talking about. And because of what's been on my mind with all of that context, I was delighted to realize that it is Chef Amy Webster that I had scheduled for this episode. I'm just in exactly the right frame of mind for this. So Amy Webster is a vegan chef who works at the Pasado Animal Sanctuary. And what she does there is uses vegan cooking as a way to help animals through education. And so not only this connection to each other, but connection to the world and to the other creatures on the planet. I am so happy that I got to speak with Chef Amy, and I know you're going to love this conversation and be inspired by the way that Amy is combining cooking, compassion, and connection. Let's listen. Chef Amy, welcome to the show.
Hi, Christine. Thank you.
I am so excited to talk with you and intrigued because you work at an animal shelter sanctuary as a chef and a vegan chef. And I haven't been able to figure out exactly how those things fit together. Can you explain to us what you do there and how those are related?
Right. Yes, it is a little, I've got a great niche job, don't I? I am the only chef at the sanctuary, and the connection is that we are a farm animal sanctuary. We do also have dogs and cats and other domestic animals who are available for adoption. But our mission is to help end animal cruelty, and we have a pretty good focus on farm animals. So once you learn about the plight of farm animals, you can kind of see the connection to our food system, which here's where I come in as a vegan chef. So we have a lot of programs that involve food. And so it kind of makes sense to have someone like me on staff to kind of provide all the recipes. And I do a lot of education around, the food industry involving animals.
Can you elaborate on one or two of the programs that you're closely involved with?
Yeah, I have cooking classes that are very popular at the sanctuary where we bring people in who want to learn more about vegan cooking, might be a little intimidated, or maybe they're just brought there by someone else who, is trying to gift them a class. So they're very popular classes. We have a lot of different variety of themes and menu options to choose from. But what we like to do is try to make it easy and approachable. That is my whole thing. Is my classes are very popular, and I think that's why. It's also very positive. So we bring people in who, maybe are just trying to cut back on meat a couple of days, so don't know where to start with cooking, and that could be a common thing. So I really want to meet people where they are, and so the cooking classes are very popular. We also have events at the sanctuary that I help bring food in for, and most of the time I cook for those. But also one of the other programs that is really exciting is we call it our plant-powered plates program. And yes, it's a little fun to say fast, plant-powered plates. This is a program that is unique to Washington, where I work with schools, K through 12 schools around the state, to help bring more plant-based options to their menus. There's many reasons for this. Sometimes we have, students who have religious beliefs or ethical beliefs, their families do. But we have a climate initiative in our state, which has a couple of years now has offered some funding to schools. So we've got grant funding that the schools have available to them just for this, just to bring more plant-based meals to their menus. So I'm helping them do that. I've created a program where I have lots of resources for them. We also offer training where I come in and I'll, help the staff. We have tasting events that we come to the schools, and it's all free because our programs are donor funded. So it keeps me pretty busy.
That is fascinating. So you're doing plant-based meals for kids in schools. How are the kids responding to this?
It's surprising how open to it they are. We were recently in a school that is in a rural area in a very animal agriculture heavy area of the state. And these were high school kids. And as you know, they really don't filter a lot, right? They will say what they feel.
Yes, I know.
Well, it was a great experience. I mean, these students were positive. They were interested. They swarmed our tables. We had these plant-based nuggets that are put out by Rebellious. Those are, they're formulated just for K through 12 schools. So they meet the requirements set by the USDA, the Rebellious Nuggets do, and they were so popular. I mean, it was a really fun experience. And, we get one or two students who are, kind of critical or maybe want to say something funny. But for the most part, I'd say 95% of the students were very receptive. It's a lot of fun.
That is really, really cool. I love that. I'm gonna have a conversation with my teenagers in the next couple days and see what they think. I mean, I like this actually we were talking about a bit before recording is we're not a plant-based or vegan family at all, but slowly trying to de-emphasize or make it the less central part of the meal, sometimes having some meatless meals, but I don't really talk about it with them. I'm just doing the cooking part, I guess partly because I don't want the pushback, but also it's just easier. Do you have thoughts on like the things that like resonate and get the least pushback? Do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head, Christine, with just kind of approaching it slow and not making a huge emphasis. Even when we work with schools, we advise them not to call it meatless, necessarily, or to even call it vegetarian. I think people focus on what they're not getting when you call it meatless, But now if you say it's plant forward, plant-based, try to use like positive language. I like to call my recipes just what they are. So it is this thing, right? And so that way people understand what's in it, the flavors that you're going to find, and they can be excited about that and not focus on what they're not getting. And I will advocate till the day I die that, it's really about the techniques, the flavors, the love we give food. And I would argue that I can do the same with a plant, with plants and then building on that flavor, the mouthfeel, all of that we do for any dish. I just try to apply that to plants. And so I think you're right. It's just about, I like to meet people where they are. And I like to just, find the flavors that they like and try to, create what they like, but maybe with a plant base.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It's like the difference between calling something, I'm trying to think of a good, like zesty tomato pasta versus vegetarian bolognese, right? Like one sounds much more, I want to eat that than the other. Like, wait, what are you giving me in here?
It's so true. It's so true. It's like if you say vegan burrito, you might get a couple vegans who are like, okay, great, there's an option for me, but I still don't really know what's in it, right?
Right.
But if you, like you just said, if I say 3-bean sweet potato burrito, it's like, ooh, that sounds kind of good. Okay,
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of this, you have lots of great ideas. I need to say congratulations. You have an amazing cookbook out with Posados. Can you tell us a bit about it? It's so cool.
Yes, thank you. I know we're really, really excited. This is our first cookbook, and it is chock full of plant-based recipes, completely vegan plant-based recipes, but they're all easier and they are, really tasty. And like I said, I try to make all the recipes just kind of really approachable and easy steps, things that you already maybe know how to do, but we're going to apply it with some plant-based ingredients instead. It's called Sanctuary Chef. And it is also part, I want to say, coffee table book, because is that the word, coffee table?
Because it's beautiful.
Because we also tell the story of Posado's Safe Haven. So that's the sanctuary. And there's a lot of history there, and it's worth sharing. And so the book is filled with some beautiful photos of the animals, some animal stories that we are really proud of, some good rescue stories that make you feel like connected to the animals and also informed of, what we're doing out here at Posado's Safe Haven. And so it's a beautiful collection of both recipes and also just some information and history around Posado's Safe Haven.
That is really, really beautiful. I love everything about that. Can you tell me, you mentioned a little bit before we started recording, the name Posado comes from one of the animals that was in your care at one point. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And is that story in the book?
Yes, that story is in the book. Yes. And yes, it's a unique name. Posado was a donkey, and he was, this was 30 plus years ago, he was badly abused and killed by some younger people who, this donkey was beloved by the community. He was at a petting zoo type of place, and everyone knew him and loved him. And one night, these people came in at night and brutalized him. So it's a horrible story. But what happened was, the community came together and they wanted to prosecute, rightfully so, the people who did this. And what they found was that there were no good, strong animal welfare laws on the books at the time in Washington. Wow. So they banded together, and it became a movement where it's like, we want to improve the laws. So that's also kind of ties into something that is really interesting about Posado Safe Haven is not only do we have animals there who we have rescued, but we have a cruelty investigations department that helps with communities that, need someone to come in. A lot of times animal control is, understaffed, underfunded. So we can help with that. And, our investigators are very strong and knowledgeable about how to do this. So that's kind of where it all started with Posado, and just kind of in his name and in his honor, we have a large photo of him in our, right over our fireplace in our education center. He is really where we started. So from there became a movement. We have, some animals on site that, who have been rescued, but also these other programs have built up around that. Some education programs. And we just, we do a lot. We have spay neuter services. We have some really great pet services programs where we help communities who need some extra help with just keeping their animals up to date on vaccines or medical care. We do a lot, and we service the entire state. So that's the other great part about Posado Safe Haven. It's not just for our own county, it's for the whole state. So our investigators are everywhere. I'm going everywhere. Our spay neuter services are going everywhere. It's just, it's really needed. And I'm hoping that other states are able to kind of model after what we're doing in Washington.
It is so inspiring. I have like tears in my eyes and chills all at once. I am like, yes, very, very, very moved. Thank you for sharing all of this. I am guessing that if people want, if they're also inspired and are feeling this way, one of the ways that they can help support what you're doing is to buy the cookbook.
That's right. We're supporting the animals by buying the cookbook, and it is only available at our website. So if you don't mind, I'd love to mention the website.
Yes, please go for it.
It's pasadosafehaven.org. And so there's only one S. So it's pasadosafehaven.org altogether. And that's where we're selling the cookbook through our gift shop. So you can find it online, or if you want to come out to the sanctuary, anyone who's local, maybe make a vacation out of it. But we're located in Monroe, which is right in the foothills of the Cascade Mountains. So it's a really beautiful area.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes. And our sanctuary we have at least 2 public tours every month. We have events at the sanctuary 4 times a year. We have, cooking classes, lots of fun things going on at Posados.
That's wonderful. And I will put the link in the show notes for this podcast episode, and it'll be on our Facebook group and everything too. So if people are looking for it, and I'm sure they can go to Google and search and end up at the right place too. So they will make sure to find it. And to further convince them that they need to get this book, Chef Amy, I believe the surprise recipe you've brought for me is from the cookbook. Is that right?
It is. Yes. You got it right.
I'm excited. Okay. Which one are you telling me about?
Okay. I have selected the strawberry cupcakes.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So they're vegan cupcakes. And I think sometimes vegan baking can be a little intimidated, which is a good reason to choose this recipe, because I love the opportunity to talk about how easy it can be to replace eggs. And some people are doing it because for ethical reasons, but also allergies. Mm-hmm. So if you have someone in your life who's trying to cut back on eggs for whatever reason, this is a great recipe. It's really easy, very flavorful. And of course, pink is my favorite color. So I'm partial to these cupcakes.
do they end up a nice pink color?
Yes.
Oh, yay.
Well, I mean, the frosting is more pink than the cupcake itself, but you can also add food coloring. But yes, they are naturally pink.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So where do you start when you're making these?
Okay. Well, when I make of course, I preheat the oven and prep whatever, if we're going to do a cake or if we're going to do cupcake tins, the little papers, but kind of the showstopper here for this recipe, if you will, maybe it's more like the engine, is the soy milk and apple cider vinegar that we combine. So that kind of creates what we call a vegan buttermilk. So what I like to do is mix that first, because you want to give it a couple minutes to kind of combine, and it gets real thick and it becomes kind of like a buttermilk. And that helps to bind in these cupcakes.
So I know when you add acid to dairy milk, it's like separating the fat or something. Is it the same process that's thickening with the soy?
Yes. And soy milk is high in protein. So it has this great, you can do this with almond milk, oat milk, hemp milk, but I have found in baking that it just works so much better with soy. So if you have no issues with soy, this is a great way. You're also getting the protein from the soy milk as well. But I like to, get the soy milk that's the, no flavor, unsweetened and plain. And it's just a little bit. So we've got 3/4 cup of soy milk and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. You can use white vinegar as well. I like apple cider vinegar just for this because I'm adding just a tiny bit of extra layer of flavor in there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And could you use lemon juice?
Yes. Actually, lemon juice is also what I use in a lot of other recipes. Okay. Yes. And so this one is, and I have lemon juice later in the recipe, but
okay, so it's already.
Yeah, you're right. An acid will work. So whatever that is. Yes.
Okay, great. So we're making a fun soy buttermilk.
Yeah. We whisk those together and then set those aside. And then I just like to combine the dry ingredients. So we've got a lot of the stuff is common, what we're going to use, just for any other baking recipe for cupcakes. So 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of sugar, some baking soda, and then the salt. I just whisk all that together, set that aside. Now, the other thing I really like to, for this recipe, for me, it's important that we're using fresh strawberries or actual strawberries, even frozen, but that's where you're going to get that good flavor because they're real strawberries in this, in these cupcakes. And they are so popular. I made these cupcakes for a retirement party we had at the sanctuary for 2 staff members who were longtime staff members who were leaving, retiring both. And they were very, very popular. And some people, in spite of their color, still loved them.
Wow.
So it's a fun recipe. So we've got the dry ingredients set aside. And then for the wet ingredients, it's pretty surprising that you don't need a mixer for this, because what we're going to do is combine a half cup of strawberry puree. And like I mentioned, we want those, real strawberries is really good. I mean, I've tried this recipe one time. I was making something last minute, did not have strawberries, both either frozen or fresh. And I did use a strawberry jam. And it worked. I just had a little extra sugar than I think I wanted, so it will work. But going for those, frozen or fresh strawberries is the best. And so you can make a puree. I have a little bullet grinder, little machine that I use. And I just put a few strawberries in there and a little bit of lemon juice. And then that makes your puree. Just lemon juice helps to kind of bring out that flavor, that fruit flavor. I found that in almost every fruit, baking dish I'm going to make, but just a little bit of lemon. And I include that little part of this in the recipe as well. So you can use frozen or, I will thaw the frozen or fresh.
So you're adding the lemon juice to there for the flavor, but does it also I'm thinking about how much you add. Like with my little bullet chopper, it needs a little bit of liquid to get going. If the little bit of lemon juice doesn't get it moving, would I add water or more lemon juice, or does it matter?
I have added a little lemon juice when a little water when I'm using frozen, because, I do need a little bit. I try to not use too much. Obviously, you don't want it to water down. And then, of course, if you use too much water, then you could cook it, right? And you can reduce it on, a stovetop and kind of do it that way.
Strain it even a little bit or something. Yeah. So
I'll strain it. Exactly.
So it should be thick and pulpy though, right?
Yep, exactly. Okay. Thick and pulpy. I try not to make it too, I don't want it too many chunks, right? Because, usually when you're eating a strawberry cupcake, it's, you don't expect to have any chunks. So I will grind it down as much as I can. And then, if you can strain it or reduce it on the stovetop, but it should be a simple strawberry puree, nothing, too hard. And then, so a half cup of that, but then a half cup of oil, you got to have some of the fat there in your cupcakes, right? And then vanilla. Do
you have oil preference? Like olive oil would probably have a bit of a flavor. So maybe not. That's that. Right. Grapeseed, avocado. Do you have a preference there?
Yeah, I like a light neutral oil. So I'll use a canola oil or even vegetable oil. There, I have found there's no aftertaste with those. But you're right. I would not use, an olive oil or peanut oil or something like that. I definitely don't want that flavor in this recipe. There are definitely some great recipes that I'd love those oils. Oh yeah,
part of my mind is already I wonder if there is a strawberry olive oil cupcake that would be good where you can get that flavor. Ooh. But you'd have to be trying for it in a very deliberate way. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And have you ever been to an olive oil tasting room?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
It's so fun. But you know what? I'm somebody, I cook so simply a lot of the time. I am the person who goes to the olive oil tasting room, buys some new fancy olive oil and 3 flavored olive oils, and then they sit in my pantry forever because when I go to, I just never reach for them. They're not in my grab repertoire. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. I have a friend who bought me some garlic olive oil and it was garlic seasoned and it was so good, but I am not used to that. And so it took me a minute to just even use it, incorporate it into my cooking. But then, what I found was once I did, I reached for it a lot. And when it ran out, I was like, oh, wait. I have to find more of this. It became so important.
Yeah, I need to maybe put them on my counter, deliberately. I'm not kidding. 3 days ago, we did olive oil with seasonings in it to dip bread in, and I didn't think to go grab the flavored olive oil. I started, you know what I mean, from the beginning.
Yes, exactly. Right. I know.
I'll put them on the counter. Mental note. There we go. Okay, but we're not using olive oil in these cupcakes.
I know. We got way off on something we're not even using here.
I love talking to people who love to cook because we're just going to tangent all the time, right? Okay, so you add, was it a cup of oil?
Half a cup of oil.
Half a cup of oil. Okay.
Yes. And then the vanilla, just a teaspoon of vanilla. I like that as an extra flavor in there, even though this is strawberry. I just think that it just kind of makes it, it's nice and smooth. And then we're going to add back in that soy milk mixture. and whisk it all together. And then once we're ready to bake, you know how it is with baking. You don't want to add your liquid to your dry until you're ready, because you don't want them to set out too long, because it's, baking is chemistry. And so once you put the liquid with the dry, especially in that baking soda, the chemistry starts. So once we're ready, I will mix the dry and the wet. So it's so easy. I'm not even using a standing mixer or even electric mixer. This is all done with a whisk, and mix the two together. You're going to have a nice thick, batter. And if you have a couple lumps, that's fine too. Try not to overmix, because again, we don't want it to start, reacting too much until we're ready. And then, I like to make the cupcakes form. So I will oftentimes transfer this at this point to some kind of a glass container that has, a spout, so that it's a little bit easier. Or if I'm using a spoon or something, but then it kind of gets messy. However, that works best for people. I know people have different kind of, methods for that.
I have a friend who uses, I was there just a couple weeks ago and she was doing this and I was like, oh my God, but I don't bake that much. So it's not me, but like a pancake batter machine. Have you seen this? It's like a big measuring cup, and you can mix the batter right in it. And then it has an opening at the bottom, and the handle, when you squeeze the handle on the measuring cup, the batter comes out the bottom. And she was using it to make like muffins. And I was like, oh my God, I was just like, oh my God. I need to have one of these.
I have never seen anyone use that in their home kitchen, but what a great idea. I've seen that in restaurants, in the back of the, where you're on the hot line and you're trying to, get pancakes out fast. I've seen that, but I've never thought to buy one at home. And that's a really good idea. You talked about your to-do list. I'm going to add that to my to-do list.
We're coming up with all of our to-do lists from this conversation. I love it. That's great. Okay. So you transfer it into like something pourable spout.
Right.
And then you pour from there.
Yes. Or I can just use like I use like a half cup scooper or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I only fill the cupcake papers up to about 2/3, between 2/3, 3/4, depending on if you want like nice, large, fluffy pancakes, or if you want something that's going to be shorter. If you're going to decorate something, you want more room for frosting. Mm-hmm. I kind of go big with both though. I like a nice big cupcake. And then I also do a lot of frosting, because I am one of those people who likes a good ratio of frosting to cupcake.
I am with you. It's so funny. Like, I don't have the hugest sweet tooth, but I love frosting. Like, it is one of those things. I will get the cake at the birthday party and then just eat the frosting off of it and then not finish the rest. But
yes, I love that. That's how I am. And then there are people who will take the frosting off, scrape it off, and I'm like, oh my gosh, well, you're wasting the best part.
I don't know who those people are. Okay, so you're advocating for 3/4 full then,
right?
Even though
I do tend to go a little more when I'm making them for myself or a party. Yes, 3/4 full, and then so we're baking at 350. And it's only about 25-30 minutes. And, I do the toothpick trick where I insert a toothpick, pull it out. If it comes out clean, then we know we're done, and let them cool completely before I frost them. And the frosting also uses strawberry puree. Oh. So you kind of get that burst of flavor in the frosting and in the cupcake. I would say it's a little bit more in the frosting, just because it's not baked, but I also have that lemon juice in the frosting recipe as well. So the frosting, now this is where I'm sorry.
No, I'm super intrigued about the frosting, because you're not going to have butter, and you're not going to have cream cheese, and you're not going to have all the things that I'm like going to in my head are not going to be there. So please.
Exactly. Well, if you look in the grocery stores now, there are just so many options for plant-based butters. Yeah. So there are a couple brands I really, really like, especially for this kind of application, where it just transfers over 1-to-1 that we would use regular butter, and now we're using a plant butter. So
can I ask you, so I've never bought them before. So the plant-based butters, I'm assuming taste great, spread on whatever bread, like as a spread. For cooking and baking, do they work interchangeably with dairy butter?
Yes. Now, if you buy like the butters that are a square, or a stick, they work. I have found that those brands work 1-to-1, and I have no problem with them. What I have a problem with is when we use, back in the day before we had really good options, someone might use like a margarine or where they're softer, they're a lot more, oil filled, and those are harder to kind of make the same consistency. So you want something, a lot of times they're coconut based. And if you were trying to stay away away from coconut. There are other, some other really good products out there too. So Violife and Miyoko's are my two favorite go-tos. And those are both like sold in little squares. So they're hard, when they're refrigerated, they make a really good frosting that comes out nice and firm, and you wouldn't miss it. You wouldn't really be able to taste the difference, I would say. Same with baking without eggs. I just want to go back to that for a second, because I think it's funny. We've learned how to bake with eggs, and we know what eggs do. They bind, right? But no one bites into a cupcake and says, oh, I love that egg, right? It's all about all the other flavors. It's not about the egg. The egg we want for the properties. And so if we can get those same properties, and there are so many binders out there now. I mean, there were, but we're learning more about this. And this, there's so many great common ones. Like now for this recipe, because it's, strawberry cupcakes, I wouldn't want something that's going to change the color, but canned pumpkin is a great binder for baking, and it's healthy because it's just canned pumpkin, and you can make it, or you can buy a can of pumpkin, which is so affordable. But I like to do that with like maybe a chocolate cupcake or a cake where I don't care about the color. The color is dark enough that it's going to cover it up. It's not going to be orange. These cupcakes wouldn't do well. Silken tofu is another good binder. Oh. It's got a lot of protein in it. And so it's really the protein that we want, right? That's what an egg has in it. So, and then there are some other actual egg replacement products on the market. So Just Egg is my favorite. It's a liquid vegan egg that I can use 1/4 of a cup. And I use that for one egg, and it works great because you get the moisture, the same amount of moisture, you get the binding qualities, and you don't taste it. So we're still getting what we want out of it, but not adding any weird flavors.
I have so many questions now that are not about the
I'm sorry.
No. I love it. I love it. So the egg substitute, can you cook it like a scrambled egg? Does it taste like egg?
Yeah, and it's an incredible product. So Just Egg it's a new-ish product, but Just is the brand, and it is made from beans, and so it's got this high protein quality. But their scientists have figured out a way that it's liquid, so it kind of acts just like a egg white product, right? Where it comes in a carton. And if you pour it into the pan, and just like you have whisked up eggs, it will, cook up, and you push it around with a spatula just like you would, and it starts to get firmed up, and it's perfect. They're fluffy. I make omelets all the time with this product. So it's a great one. And that's really easy for baking too. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. No, what I really like about some of the things you're talking about is for people like me who are trying to do a little bit more plant-based, but I'm skipping the meat. Like that's fine. But that there could just be like, okay, I buy this instead of butter now. And that's what we spread on our bread. And I'm buying this instead of eggs now. And that's what we're using. And nothing changes. Breading is the same. Baking is the same. Making the omelets. Well, I guess you're not cracking anything open, but everything else is the same. That feels very easy.
That's a good point. You're right that, if you have products where you can substitute and you're not changing anything, I think that's key. And I think that's key for a lot of people, because sometimes change can be hard or intimidating, but people don't know where to start. And so if this is a product where you can just slip it in and it's one for one, or if it acts the same, I think that's where we really can make it easier for people to access and try, right? Try new things.
I love this. Such great information. Thank you so much. Okay. But now the frosting.
Yes, I know. I'm so sorry.
No, it's my fault. I interrupted, asked the question, and then I have to try and get us back on track. Okay.
Yes. So I like one of these vegan butter options. Either they come in like a little square, like either or a stick or a square. And there's a few on the market now, but kind of letting it sit out room temperature is best, because we are going to use a blender for this, or a standing mixer for this. So I'm going to combine that with the butter, the vegan butter, with some more strawberry puree. So only 1/4 of a cup for this frosting, but we are going to add a teaspoon or so of lemon juice. And so that's going to really brighten it up. It picks up that fruit flavor. And I mean, it is this, I can feel it in my mouth. It's tangy, but yet sweet and strawberry. I love it. And then of course you've got your powdered sugar. So powdered sugar is, I start with the butter, the puree, and the lemon juice, combine that in a standing mixer, and then slowly add in the powdered sugar so that you're not breathing in a cloud of white dust, right?
I'm very familiar with this.
Right? Yeah. Yes. And then, yeah, slowly. And so it's about 6 cups. And so this ratio will give you a nice firm frosting that's not too stiff, still workable. And then, you can spread it on the cupcakes, or I like to put it into a piping bag and make the pretty cupcakes out of that. So, and now at this point, you can also add a couple extra drops of food coloring if you want to make it even more bright pink. That's a good option. I made some Dolly Parton themed cupcakes where I definitely needed to brighten it up. So I made those really bright pink.
I love that. That's so fun. Oh, Amy, these sound amazing. I'm super excited to try the cupcakes, but I'm super excited to also try the different substitution products that you've mentioned, because I think that's going to be really easy for me and my family. So I really appreciate that. Can you tell people one more time where they should go to get this cookbook and to find more about the great things that you guys are doing?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes. The cookbook is available at our shop online or in person at pasadosafehaven.org. And we've got a lot of other merchandise there, but the cookbook is a pretty exciting addition to our new shop. So, yes.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Christine.
You're inspired, right? I know I am. Thank you so much, Chef Amy. All of those tips, that recipe, and the inspiration and all the work that you're doing. Everybody go and check out Pasado Safe Haven. You can go to shop-pasadosafehaven.org to check out the book and the other things that they have for sale there, or go look in the show notes for this podcast episode. I will have the information there for you as well. It's just very easy to help out this amazing organization. Okay, so we are back to the portion of the episode where I tell you what I'm going to be cooking. But of course, I am not cooking anything because I'm getting packed up and doing laundry and all of that stuff to get ready for my trip. Yes, the time warp again. So as I said, I'm recording this on June 22nd because I'm leaving in a few days for a month in Belgium. Super excited. Doesn't really feel real yet, but it will soon. And yeah, so I don't have any cooking to tell you about. And I'm kind of running out of things to just sort of spin on and riff on at the end of these shows. On last week's episode, I told you what I've been cooking for myself, but I recorded that yesterday and I haven't made anything new since then. So instead, I'm just gonna focus on what is coming up on the site and on this show and wrap this up. I really I'm excited about going on the holiday, but I'm really excited to come back and have more things to tell you. That's going to be so great, right? Okay, so there is only one new recipe going live on the site this week, and that is for a Green Goddess cottage cheese dip. So the idea here is we did a Green Goddess salad dressing a little while ago that everybody loves and has left comments about, and I decided it's so good it needs to be turned into a dip as well. So it's a little thicker. A couple little things are different, but you're essentially pureeing the cottage cheese with fresh herbs, and that's the basis of the dip. So that is going live on the Cookful this week. On Cook the Story, we're doing almost like a little roundup about the different ways to cook corn on the cob and different tips, kind of pulling from all of those different corn on the cob recipes I've been talking about lately and sort of amalgamating them into one more general post. So that is going live on Cook the Story. As to what I'm telling you about this week, I've got an unusual avocado recipe. It's actually a classic recipe, but we don't think of turning avocado into soup very often. And this is a delicious soup. You're going to love it. There is a pineapple mango salsa, a stuffed shell recipe, not the taco stuffed shells that I told you about before. These are the ones with the ricotta that my family doesn't like because none of them likes ricotta. Don't get me started on this, but it is a delicious recipe. Oh, I have one more dinner to make for all by myself tomorrow night. Maybe it should be something with ricotta in it. I'm totally doing that. And then, I am telling you about the cottage cheese dip in more detail for sure, and an unusual lemonade recipe. So there is a lot coming your way this week, a new recipe every day. And at some point during the week, probably around Thursday, I will have stopped with the pre-recorded recipes and will be on your timeline again. And next Saturday, when you come back to the show, I will be right in line with you in August where I should be. Thank you for sticking with me through this. I hope it hasn't been too confusing. I hope you have had a good month while I'm away, and I look forward to touching base with you in the same timeline soon. Thank you again, Chef Amy, for being a great guest. Everybody go and check out basadosafehaven.org. Thank you everyone for listening. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.